Welcome back to another episode of the Ville Chillin' Podcast, part of the Villain ENT Network. My name is Aaron,
My name's Jack.
and make sure to check us out on your favorite podcast service. Give us a follow and a rating, and make sure to like, comment, and subscribe below. And follow our other channels, Ville Gaming and Ville Grillin'. Make sure to give those a subscription as well. We're doing pretty steady. Jack's going pretty steady on the gaming content, and we found our grilling footage, so we should be
Nice.
able to
Right in
get to
time for
work on those.
Thanksgiving.
Exactly. So just make sure to check those out as usual. And today we are continuing our People of Kentucky series with one of my personal childhood favorites, Jim Varney, a.k.a. Ernest P Worrell. Were you a fan of Ernest?
Of course. Like, that's definitely I didn't know he was from Kentucky growing up, though, so that was one of those things I was
Not
very
either.
surprised about.
Until
That's
this
awesome.
episode, or until we started looking into this series, I guess. But yeah, it's awesome. So, yet again, another episode I'm really excited about, which I think I've said that for every episode we've recorded for this series so far, which I guess is a good thing. So, again, we'll be talking about the man behind, in my opinion, the best cinematic comedy character portrayal in the 90s. That's all I can say. Jim Varney is the man behind the legendary, mythical, and iconic character Ernest P Worrell. And I can't imagine that there are too many people in the U.S. who are around in the 90s who haven't at least heard of Ernest. Even if they didn't watch the movies, even if they skipped past them, they know who Ernest is. You know,
At least saw the commercials.
yeah, the commercials or somebody talked about it, and like there were always those kids who were like, "Oh, he's dumb," but they just didn't appreciate good comedy.
What was your favorite Ernest movie?
Probably Scared Stupid, mostly because it was on a lot, probably, and I just saw it so much. But Ernest Goes to Jail was always really funny too. And actually, I was I was about to say, I watch them every time they're on, and how many other cinematic characters can you think of who go to camp, save Christmas, go to jail, get scared stupid, go back to school, and end up on the army or in the army, and whatever else happened in between all those? You know what I'm saying? I don't think there is one.
Ernest did it all, man.
He was
Yeah,
out.
full
He was there. Like when I think of comedy army movies, there's In the Army Now with Pauly Shore, and there's Ernest Joins the Army. What else is there?
Especially in the 90s, man.
Yeah, I mean, there's others, but Major Payne was a good one.
That was,
But
that
either
was
way,
what I was coming to,
and again, that's all due to the character portrayal. So, Jim Varney was definitely a legend, and again, somebody I was impressed or surprised to find out, but happy to find out is from here. So, Varney was born in Lexington on June 15th, 1949. And as a child, he had an uncanny proficiency in memorizing long poems and like large portions of material from books. And from a young age, he was known to use that ability to entertain friends and family. His mom would often turn on cartoons for him to watch and later find him imitating the cartoons, prompting her to enroll him in a children's theater at the age of 8. And his interest just kind of flourished from there. And as a teenager, he began competing in drama competitions and even won a state title while attending Lafayette High School in Lexington. At 15, he even played Ebenezer Scrooge in a local production, and by 17, he was performing professionally in like nightclubs and coffee shops and stuff. He studied Shakespeare at Barter Theater in Virginia and performed in an Opryland folk show in the 1970s. And he attributed his former teacher as being a mentor in his acting career. And when he was 24, he acted at the Pioneer Playhouse in Danville, Kentucky. And so it's really important, I think, to point out, and I'll definitely talk about it more too, but he wasn't just a crazy comedy character. Jim Varney was a very well-educated, I mean, he was quoting Shakespeare. He was known for just being able to quote Shakespeare anytime, anywhere, He was definitely an inspiration and
growing up and seeing some of his some of his scenes, like you would be surprised, like his comedy, you would be surprised that he was trained the way he was. Like
Yeah. And that was all acting, which
Educated,
shows
yeah.
that it just shows how talented the guy was. Before Ernest, he was a regular cast member in the TV show Johnny Cash and Friends and played a recurring guest in the faux late night talk show Fernwood Tonight. From 77 to 79, he was cast in the TV version of Operation Petticoat, and just before his career as Ernest, he was cast in Pink Lady and Jeff, while also playing Milo Skinner in the TV show Alice. During this time, he was also spending time touring as a stand-up comic, specializing in character comedy, no surprise there, and would impersonate numerous characters with elaborate backstories. And actually, during his stand-up career, he reportedly became friends with Robin Williams. So, he was definitely hitting the bigger comedy scenes if he was brushing shoulders with Robin Williams.
Right. I didn't know he did stand up either. I always just thought of him as.
It was really before the Ernest stuff took off. He moved out to LA and he worked on doing some comedy, and that's when he was in those other things. And then he kind of took a break. In the 80s, there was a big actor strike or something. And during that time, that's when he came back to Kentucky and started doing more like stand-up and then the theater stuff here before he got involved in Ernest. Excuse me. But of course, his best-known character is Ernest P Worrell. And he began as a character in commercial advertisement, first as advertisement for the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders when they came to Beach Bend Park, which, if you don't know, is an amusement park / drag strip / race course near Bowling Green, Kentucky. They actually have quite a bit. And so after that, the character was quickly franchised for use in so many markets and was quite popular in the dairy scene. Actually, especially milk commercials, ice cream commercials. And there was actually a series in New Orleans portraying Ernest as a spokesman for natural gas utilities. And after that ran, the same ad ended up being used in St. Louis and in Detroit in the mid-'80s. He appeared in Brahms ice cream and dairy stores commercials through the 80s and also made commercials for car dealerships across the country. And he reportedly once filmed 26 commercials in a day. Dang.
Man, that turnover, man, how much money did that turn into?
Well, his wardrobe budget wasn't very big, and there wasn't any time between shoots. So, I mean, if you see Ernest and he's not wearing the overalls with the denim cap, then, So in the late 80s, the character was used in, of course, all the popular movies. Ernest Goes to Camp, of course, was the first one in 87, and it grossed $23.5 million at the box office and was only a $3.5 million production budget. That's pretty good. He was also in a short-lived TV series, Hey Vern, It's Ernest, play on his iconic phrase, know what I mean, Vern? And of course, his other movies, I don't have the exact details, but there were several, the first several were in theaters. Once they started declining, they ended up going straight to film. But even going straight to film, they still made money.
Right.
So
very profitable.
I mean,
syndication, man. Every holiday, they have a Ernest for it, so those just keep going. And
exactly. I can't wait to watch Ernest Scared Stupid.
Right, for Ernest Saves Christmas, man.
Right, and that was the thing. The movie adaptation continued through into the late '90s to give us those titles like Saves Christmas, Goes to Jail, Scared Stupid, and more. All of them. And the character was used in some smaller indie films and stuff too.
As cameos and stuff, you'd be watching a movie and he'd just show up.
Yep. He was awesome, dude. Ernest was one of my favorites, man. I don't know. I have a lot of memories about Ernest. So, but beyond Ernest, it's definitely his most famous and arguably best, in my opinion. He played many other roles. In the early 80s, he played a character in the comedy drama The Roosters about the descendants of Wyatt Earp. In 85, he co-hosted HBO's New Year's Eve special along with Johnny Cash and Chris Christopherson. He starred as Jed Clampett in the 1993 production of Beverly Hillbillies and had other movies as well. He was the voice actor for the Slinky Dog in Toy Story 1 and 2.
I don't know how I missed that.
Yep. And he voiced Cookie Farnsworth in Atlantis, The Lost Empire. I don't know if you ever saw that animated. Was it Disney? I'm pretty sure it was Disney. He worked a lot with Disney. Huh. But it was an animated movie, and so he voiced a character there too.
With Michael, I think it had like Michael J. Fox or something.
And that actually came out after he died.
Oh.
Because he passed in 2000, and that was released like shortly after his passing. He had a cameo in The Simpsons and even appeared in some of the final episodes of Roseanne. He was also in a film that a lot of people probably don't know about. A 1998 film, Three Ninjas, High Noon at Mega Mountain.
That was my jam. What do you mean?
Okay, I wasn't sure. Well, of course, Hulk Hogan.
With Toby and
yeah,
like the three ninjas. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the three little kids. Yeah.
Is that the same? Yeah.
It was like I can't. Rocky, Colt, and Tum Tum.
Whatever.
Tum Tum, because he liked to eat.
Like you said, it had
Come
Hulk
on.
Hogan in it.
Yeah. Well, see, it's interesting. I didn't know how popular those were. I was really into those movies, all of them, because that wasn't the only Three Ninjas movie. But when I was younger, my dad was really into martial arts movies, so naturally I was too. And then I watched like a lot of Power Rangers and things like that. So naturally, when my mom, back then, just pop a VHS and just record it off the TV. And I had all the Three Ninjas movies on cassette, tape cassette for I don't know how long. Like, I watched them so much, it's ridiculous.
So, and I guess that's one of those other movies that he just randomly appears
in. He just appears in, and he's hilarious in everything. One of his final films was actually Billy Bob Thornton's Daddy and Them. And at the time of his passing, he was working on a screenplay about the legendary feud between the Hatfields and McCoys, stating that his grandfather hunted squirrel with the Hatfields. That's interesting. Right. I definitely wouldn't have expected that. It was been reported that during that time in his life before he passed, he was really hoping to start acquiring more serious roles to prove himself beyond Ernest. He embraced it, and he was thankful for it. But for someone well-versed in Shakespeare and able to quote the Shakespearean works on a whim, playing the character like Ernest for a better part of 20 years kind of becomes exhausting because people associate you so much with that character and that nature. And it was funny. It was fun for him, but it was a blessing and a curse because people automatically start to just think of you as that foolhardy, foolish, He didn't make that public often, though. It was only like one or two interviews towards the end of his life that he actually came out and said that. He was always very humble and thankful for his opportunity to play Ernest. He just wanted more, which is understandable. So, kind of leading into it, Varney was a longtime chain smoker and developed a cough in the late 90s and was diagnosed with lung cancer. He reportedly gave up smoking, but his condition slowly worsened. He underwent chemotherapy, which ultimately failed, and he passed on February 10, 2000, at his home in Tennessee. He was buried at Lexington Cemetery, and in 2013, his nephew published a comprehensive biography about Varney's life titled The Importance of Being Ernest, The Life of Actor Jim Varney, stuff that Vern doesn't even know. And there's actually a documentary in the works by David Pagano and Daniel Butler, who was a cast member on Ernest Goes to Camp. And they're working on a documentary called The Importance of Being Ernest. And I've said it plenty of times in this episode already, but in my humble opinion, Ernest was just one of the funniest characters I ever saw on TV growing up. Because it wasn't just complete and total slapstick comedy. I don't know. As a kid, it had substance, man.
Definitely. And
There was a mission.
that nostalgia, like whenever you think of him, it brings you back to when you were a kid. And him as a person, just he seems like he was a good person to where like very wholesome. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Like, he kept to that character as far as just being a good guy. Like,
Yeah, man. As a kid, I have memories of just flipping through the channels, and if I saw an Ernest movie on, I stopped. I couldn't think of anything better to watch. It was one of the first times a film character ever actually kind of stopped and directed his attention to the camera, almost engaging the audience, and it was like you were involved in the shenanigans going on, like
it's a big deal, especially when you're a kid.
when you're a kid, inclusion is everything. It's such a main influence. And again, I kind of already touched on it, but my dad got me into the martial arts stuff. So when he was in Three Ninjas, that was just hilarious. And then, Hulk Hogan, dude. Like, you got Hulk Hogan and Jim Varney in a movie where three little kids are going around kicking ass. You know what I mean? So it was just awesome. And my dad was always a fan of Ernest too. I remember growing up hearing people going around saying, "Know what I mean, Vern?" And I didn't really put it together, but yeah, obviously now I definitely know. And again, they're working on documentaries and all that stuff about his life, and I definitely encourage anyone, especially if you were a fan of him, but anyone from Kentucky, to look into it, because again, I think it's somebody that we can both say we're proud to say is from Kentucky, especially so, and it's close to Louisville. He's in Lexington, so it's just something I didn't know, and I just thought it was really cool and really interesting. So major influence in my life, at least as far as cinematic stuff goes. So do you have anything you want to add?
Nothing. I think that sums it up. Ernest was a awesome, wholesome guy. Like,
Jim Varney.
Well,
Ernest was too. Ernest was too.
Good people.
I honestly, I didn't even know his name.
It's hard to separate.
It's very hard. But awesome dude. I guess I'll end it by saying most people in theater, especially in Hollywood, you can find some sort of controversy that happened. I couldn't find anything. Nothing I could find had a bad word to say about the guy, which just kind of reaffirms my belief that he was my childhood hero. I mean, he did everything, dude. Yeah. I guess with that, again, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Check out our other channels. As always, be blessed. Bless someone around you.
See y'all next time.
See you later.